Hello, everybody. This is Carl Quinton. I'm your host again here today for the 8th edition of Meet the Devs. Today we have George Donovan out of Newfoundland, Canada. George is a longtime supporter of Casual Connect and us, and we're really glad to have you on here today, George. So, George, why don't you tell us first off, how you got your start in technology and video games and how you began your career?
Sure. My start in technology is going to go way back to 1993. Going into my last year of university, I was basically in the phys ed department at my university taking physical education. And the dean forced me to use a laptop, start delivering my schedules and spreadsheets through HTML. Mm-hmm. So if I didn't learn all of these three things all in a very short period of time, I would lose my job, which is how I paid for my university.
Right.
So it was a necessity more than it was a passion, but it exposed me to, one, the internet, using Archie, Veronica, early versions of Netscape. It's just seeing the information that was available to me. I remember combing through the archives of the Vatican and downloading, old maps, and was just overwhelmed that, this wasn't being delivered, through a Purelator or through a book. Mm-hmm. So jumping ahead, I started an internet company. I sold it within a year of its creation to our local newspaper because I was stealing all of his advertisers because they were building web pages, not local ads, trying to go after Germans. And then I was quickly picked up by an agency in Hollywood. So I went to work for them for about 2 years. Mm-hmm. It taught me a lot about what not to do as far as how to treat people, how to do deals. But I certainly made a lot of connections in that time frame. Mm-hmm. Jumped over to the internet, started my own agency, actually. So I was doing both technology, representation, and game development. For a host of different companies. Started an internet company after that. Was quickly acquired within about 3 years during the dot-bomb by a publicly traded company. So we were very fortunate to partner with them. We were all products, they were all marketing. So I learned a lot about, mass market, dealing with high volume usage. We were publicly traded, so there was, Simon-Oxley's and all the things that go with being a public company. Quickly got tired of that, wanted to go back and kind of do an indie thing again, really love startups. So I started Goji Games in 2006 after getting an early package from my public company in 2004. And I've been doing Goji ever since. Obviously, there's been lots of highs, many lows, but the games industry is one that is full of surprises on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So it keeps you on your toes, which is kind of what makes me constantly interested in it.
Yeah. So you were mentioning you took a job in Hollywood and stuff. So did you move down to the U.S. or have you been based in Newfoundland the most of the time?
Actually, I'm based in New Brunswick, Canada. So we're right on kind of on the east coast of Atlantic Canada. I have offices in PEI and Halifax, Nova Scotia as well. But when I was in LA, yes, because we have kind of a rule on how many days we can stay in Canada, I would be kind of like down there for 2 to 3 weeks and then back here for 4 to 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then when I sold the public company, I was doing the same thing in New York. I was down for 2 weeks, back for 3 to 4 weeks, and then a pile of travel and trips. One drawback to being in this far east, when the world that operates in the games industry is that far west, mm-hmm. is that I get a lot of air miles. So lots of trips to LA, California, now Nevada. Yeah, it keeps my status fairly high on the airline side, but I'm very fortunate that I control my own schedule, the shows I want to go to. So I get to spend the time I want with my family, which is why I made the pivot.
Cool. What about being that Far East European relations? Do you do a lot more European side because of your location, or do you end up staying North America side?
You know what? I actually was probably maybe closer to the Europeans back in the retail days. We had a lot of success in retail during the irony behind the Casual Connect casual side of the business is when everyone thought that moving products from retail to the online digital distribution was the best idea. I saw it as the opposite. I saw it as a great branding opportunity online to push retail. Okay. So we were really successful on the retail side. not being a big five publisher in retail console, we had 24 SKUs at Walmart at one point.
Wow.
And that was, between hunting games and, love games with our puppy series, to, all of our card packs and our puzzle packs, and then, a dozen hidden object games. We kind of flooded the market. The attention on the success at Walmart, North America, brings the Europeans. We were the ones that could do those deals because, one, I knew how to do box design. I knew how to do sheet design. Mm-hmm. We knew how to prep the schedules, and those guys were really liked work with me because I knew what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So that allowed us to get into, the UK, Germany, Spain, Russia. We started doing a ton of deals in retail when a lot of the market was just getting used to digital.
So is that kind of wrapped up? Is that, that,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see that anymore at all, but
no,
there might be an outlier.
We actually still do some retail. Mm-hmm. We work with a handful of companies in Europe as well as in the US. But really it's just because, we have 118 titles. We have a luxury of having an enormous back catalog. We've recently got acquiring a lot of content from other companies as well, ones that we're comfortable with and work within our demographic of our own online players. So we're exposing new content to our network, and our network is now, because they're comfortable with us, obviously we had a good relationship with them. They like to continually pick up new content from us. So there is a bit of a retail spin there for us, but it's pretty minor.
Yeah. So where is your user base then? What would you describe your user base as? Do you have a demographic? Do you have a location? What do you describe your users as?
Well, I guess the kind of roll the story back a little bit. When we were post the Real Arcade Big Fish success that we had, moving into online, we got an Archie's license. We did some work with Gene Simmons and Shannon Tweed on a game with them on mobile. Mm-hmm. We really were just missing the mark. And I think what we missed was the experience of having games on Facebook, working in social. We completely whiffed it. So we got our asses handed to us heavy in the mobile space for about 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate to run into a good friend of mine back in the day, who's a great friend now, in Arthur Humphreys from Last Day of Work. And Arthur was, back in the day, we used to always have these great banters where, I said volume was king, and he was like, no, it's brand. It's all about building small brands and building on those communities. And back in the hidden object day, I didn't know what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. Come to mobile, and we start looking at some of his numbers, he had built a phenomenal community base and really kept them engaged and really catered to those people with very isolated small brands of products, which when you get to mobile, you're in the billions of access rather than the tens of thousands or millions of access. Right. And he flourished in mobile. So what we did was we had a strategic partnership with Arthur. We brought all of our live ops, analytics, back-end server support tools to the table. He brought his brands, which mm-hmm. bring an enormous amount of organics. And we joined. That partnership has been flourishing for now going into almost 4 years. We've relaunched Fish Tycoon 2 this year. We've just launched Virtual Villagers Origins 2 this week. And Virtual Families is going to be coming next year. So there's an exciting amount of product coming down the pipe that his fans all love and know. And we get to work with a partner that really has eliminated user acquisition costs for us. So it's been a win-win scenario for us and for him as well.
So how do you keep in touch with those users? Is Facebook your primary avenue of communication with them and letting them know new products coming out, or do you have other avenues that you're communicating with your users on?
Facebook is certainly primary only because they had built their own communities on Facebook. So we kind of had to drive them back into one portal, but there were so many fan sites out there. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Arthur did a phenomenal job of creating these communities that just clustered around each other, especially when you try to solve puzzles or figure out how to, create new families and how to keep your fish from dying in Fish Tycoon. It was really unique. So by merging all these people into one portal, certainly it created more scale for us. But we also use a communication system within all of our games that allows us to message our players and allows us to keep them engaged. Allows us to answer any questions they have. So it's something that you have to stay on top of, like any mobile company does, on a daily basis.
So Anatoly from Game Insight just commented. He said, "Hey George, LDW is dope." So just wanted to pass that on.
Yeah. Yeah, he's jealous.
He's jealous. So what about making games in Canada? What is your thought about, is Canada a great place to make games? I mean, you're a little outside of the Toronto, Montreal kind of hubs and stuff, but do you feel the love up in Canada on making games? Is it supportive? Is it a great place to do it?
I think when you look at the history of the number of developers that are based in Canada, I think we're third in the world now for developer employees. I think we have a subsidized education system. So very solid, especially in computer science. We have a very, very strong ecosystem when it comes to arts as well. So, Quebec has a very, very strong tax program. There's labor rebate programs and PEI. We established an office in Halifax because of the tax credit program, but as well as they have 13 community colleges and universities that are creating and putting out and tons of very smart people from data science, computer science, mathematics. It's a great opportunity to pick some very smart people up that traditionally want to not leave. So Atlantic Canadians, if you're from Atlantic, Canada, you go to San Francisco or you get a job in Toronto, you always end up finding that bar where all the other Atlantic Canadians go hang out because they just like to cluster around people they know. And we're a friendly, pretty easygoing bunch. So it's no different, I think, here where people want to stay here. They want to continue to raise families here. So if we are one of the game options they have, they'll look at us more than they would looking at a studio in Boston, New York, Detroit, San Francisco.
So I grew up in Western Canada, and I remember when I was younger, there was all this turmoil around, the Atlantic Canadian economy being in tough straits and everything else. So do a lot of these incentives kind of stem from that stuff? Is it still considered kind of a tough economy there, or is it thriving now, would you say? Or
I wouldn't say thriving. I would say that the energy business has helped Atlantic Canadian economies. I think the pure simplest form of it is that we have constantly shipped our best people out for decades. And certain governments in Atlantic Canada recognize that. Newfoundland has a very, very strong energy income now. So their games business, I think, is coming as a side because there's so much wealth. People have the opportunity to finance or build games there where they traditionally would have to leave. Nova Scotia has great universities and community college programs. They also have a really cool culture there. It's a college town culture that allows for game developers to really love that environment. And I think the Nova Scotia Business Group has done a phenomenal job. I think there's over 40 video game companies now, where 8 years ago there was 1 or 2. So there's a huge amount of new growth for, Hothead is there, Ubisoft is there. And those companies didn't exist 2 years ago. And they're in the mobile space, and they're competing, and they're able to staff up very quickly because, like I said, there's a lot of smart people that just needed the opportunity. But I think the biggest challenge Canadian developers have had for a long time, there was always a tax program. There was always smart people. We're really terrible at marketing. We cannot market ourselves well at all. I think BlackBerry RIM is a perfect example of someone who knows how to pooch a really good technology. And their only company value is their patents. So we need to find good partners, and you find a good, strong American partner that knows how to market, knows how to manage, knows how to grow. I think that's where you're going to see huge success come from Canadian developers.
So why don't you tell us about your game that you just released, Virtual Villagers?
So obviously it came from Arthur's fan base. So Arthur had over 100 million PC downloads of his Virtual Villagers brand across a number of different SKUs. We looked at, like I said, Arthur didn't do everything traditional when it came to mobile. So he had no analytics. He had no back end. He basically put his games out there and let his community find them because he didn't do any marketing at all. Mm-hmm. He never worked with platforms, so he was never featured. So he literally lived on the community to continue to support his business and his growth, and it did. To everyone else in mobile's disbelief, he continues to compete, in top 200, top 250 grossing categories with very strong products that his customers love. I mean, he's got, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of 5-star reviews of his games just because, they're really fun to play, and they're just built on a great small loop that aren't expensive for his demo, which are young teenagers. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, they're very sandboxy. So, it's not a tutorial that takes 45 minutes. He basically throws you in and you got to figure it out or leave. And it works because he spent, a decade and a half doing it and has built a brand that people look for that.
So forgive me for not knowing this, but are we talking like free-to-play mechanics, premium sales? What's the mechanism for
free-to-play? They're free-to-play mechanics.
Free-to-play mechanics. Okay.
We use a combination of rewarded video as well as IEPs. Mm-hmm. Our most recent product is seeing much greater success in IEPs. I think it's because the user base is used to spending money because Arthur traditionally didn't have rewarded video. And we just built, a set of assets and complex puzzles that make certain things really worth buying. So they're not expensive, but when you get them, there's an enormous amount of value with those things. So because they see so much value, they're coming back and buying again. The game has only been live since Thursday of last week. So, it's still early days, but I said, we've gotten a lot of users already and we have done zero marketing for it.
So do those items that they can purchase, do they have value just to the person who purchases them? Or are they a community value? Is it something that you share resources, or is it just more like you're talking about how to do well in the game and not really competitively or cooperatively working?
It's isolated to that game specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. So this iteration or this version of the game is single player, and it's all about solving a very large number of puzzles that our very early community are trying to aggressively buy through. And I think they're going to quickly realize there's an enormous amount of content there for them. So that's one thing about, Goji's traditionally been build it good, but build it fast. Mm-hmm. We cycle out hidden object games in 4 to 6 months, in which you're big, thick, 4 or 5 hour gameplays. We've been working on this for over 2 years. Oh. So it's strong art content, very complex puzzles, work directly with the LDW design team, to make sure that we got the feel right. Arthur has a lot of nuances that Goji traditionally would have looked past, little things that make the world feel like a real world, and that's I think what makes the game even better than we would have tried to do it ourselves. Is it's got Arthur's touch on it. And he's got a great team that's worked with him that has really got a good sense of his community. So as aggravated as some of my game designers and my team get when they come back with a list of changes that don't change the loop and don't change anything big, they're just minor nuances. But when they're put in properly, it makes the experience a lot better.
Yeah. Well, I'm now decided that you have to introduce me to Arthur, because I don't think I've met him before, and it sounds like there's a lot of interesting things he'd have to say as well. So.
I bet he's he's on the other side. He's an artist, so he's I show him dashboards of data, and there's 21 of them that he's got to look at, and he's like, no, I don't like it. Yeah, I design for feel, right? And every other mobile engineer out there who has game economists and 4 guys from his data team sitting there around a room would be just shoving their heads out a window, screaming because they couldn't imagine designing a game without data. And he basically wants to design one without it. We respond to data. Mm-hmm. So we let the data decide if we made things too hard, too easy, too expensive, too cheap.
Right.
But yeah, Arthur is still really building for the community.
That's really cool. So what other things do you have planned for the future? Where's Gogi going to be in 5 years?
Like I said, we've because of our history and our success, we were able to put together a bit of an inventory of product. we're now running around and looking at opportunities in the industry where a lot of indies have not had the success. We are looking at publishing games now for the first time, so we're working with some other companies and talking about you putting their products into our network. Mm-hmm. You know, our MAU is growing every month, so it's exciting to see. You know, a good targeted campaign is going to allow us to scale our business. Arthur's games have always been in English only, so to me, the world is our oyster. It's an opportunity to, you know, put his products on console, which mm-hmm. is, you know, he hasn't had a game on console since, you know, the 3DS. And, you know, it's hard, you know, premium SKU style. So that's exciting, you know, obviously. So, you know, Steam, Xbox, Nintendo, yeah. Wherever we feel his customers are playing, with the Unity technology we build in, we're able to put to those platforms fairly quickly and optimize for each platform. So that's exciting. And Arthur's always kept his team very small. Mm-hmm. So now he can kind of look to Goji to say, okay, use your Halifax team, scale it up, and we'll support all these platforms, where before I would just do 2 or 3.
So at this point, are you pretty much an exclusive Unity shop?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're pretty happy with that? It's working really well for you, and porting to different platforms has been a big benefit? Absolutely. The hallmark of the Unity?
Yeah, no, I don't want to promote Unity, but they've been a fantastic partner. They certainly don't give us a lot of discounts, but the support we get from them, the beta access allows us to have a step ahead for some other programs and platforms. And, you know, anyone who knows me knows that I love to sell. And it's hard for me to kind of sit on my hands for that long. And all of a sudden with Unity, I can sell to 13 channels, mm-hmm. where before I could only sell to PC online and then retail. So now it's exciting. You know, I'm relearning, you know, a Nintendo process, relearning the Xbox Live requirements and, you know, the nuances of those programs and platforms. So it's fun. Like I said, you know, before the program we chatted, and it's fun for me at my age, having been in this industry for almost 20 years, that I still get to learn every day, and it's pretty neat.
So for me, one of the best parts about our conversation today is how positive you are about the industry and where we're going and everything. There's so many people out there that are just feeling, you know, pressure and downtrodden, and what are we going to do? And, you know, the outlook for them is grim. And you've got that rosy picture there, and I think it's really cool to hear for somebody that's seeing a lot of positive things in the industry and a lot of opportunities that are coming up. And so I appreciate that. So it's really cool.
Well, you know, like I said, I mean, I credit my partner with a lot of that. Arthur got us $100 million worth of free user acquisition. So I was able to, I think I'm underperforming, but, you know, his revenues have scaled significantly because of Goji and our partnership. And I think there's two very, very solid parts, a yin and a yang, if to be so ironic, that came together, and together we're just a mm-hmm. much better company for it. And because of that, you know, Arthur can focus on the things that he likes to do and wants to do and is really good at, and it allows me to sell. I mean, I'm excited about it. I can get out and sell on all these new platforms that, you know, I think his community is there and just have never had the chance to have his content on.
Nice. Excellent. So we're a little past what I usually try and do, about 20, 25 minutes. But is there anything else that you wanted to specifically talk about, or any further insights you wanted to pass along? Secret sauce to making the world go round?
Well, I mean, if there's a pitch, I mean, we're looking at good content. So, you know, if someone has a product that they're trying to, you know, find a partner with that is targeted at young teenage boys and girls, certainly more teenage girls. You know, we have a very healthy MAU that continues to grow. Mm-hmm. All of our users come tier 1. I'm hoping to expand that, doing localization for each of our countries. But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting for us to look at publishing for the first time in a couple of years and know that we've got systems in place, we have live ops teams in place, we've got analytic teams in place that can help independents potentially have life, where right now they're staring at, you know, a $50,000 UA bill, and they've got $5,000 that is going to get them through the month in their dev team. And they just, you know, a lot of these people have to shut down, and it's to your point, the business is really hard. It is really hard, and if you're not a big dog swinging a really big UA stick, it's a difficult industry to compete in, and that's why a lot of people are rushing back to PC.
Yeah.
And I think we look at PC as just another channel. My message for the last 20 years is know your customer. We've gotten to know our customer. We're making sure they're happy, and if we can find other content that makes them happy, then we're definitely looking.
Awesome. So we'll see you in January in Disneyland, and hopefully that'll be right up your alley with a lot of kids and family and Disney kind of stuff going on.
I'm bringing my whole family, and Arthur is as well, so we're both super excited that it's moving his way to Disneyland.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that as well. And there's actually talk of doing a kind of a kids showcase for games at the as part of Indie Prize, and so maybe we should talk offline and see if we can maybe have your kids come and play some of these kids games and stuff that we're doing specifically for that. So
yeah, they're just as critical as my game, so maybe be kinder to yours.
How old are your kids?
My kids are not young kids anymore. 17, 15, and 14.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't really have anything else that I feel like we should cover at this point, so I think I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and for all the years that you've been around. I really appreciate everything that you've done in the industry, and it's been super cool to talk to you again. I think this is the most we've talked since like Tel Aviv a few years ago. So
I was going to say that's the last time I remember having a conversation, walking along the beach for about half an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that's great. I appreciate the time, Carl.
No problem. All right. We'll talk again soon, I hope.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Cheers.